I don't know if this video will make much sense, but I'm just thinking about the history of the universe in terms of a series of epochs and what epoch we're in now. I guess I'm prompted to think of this by a show I listened to on the radio. I can't remember what it's called now. Probably Material World, I think, one of those shows. But it was about the fact that we're now living in, or maybe living in, what they call the Anthropocene. There's an argument being made that the human impact on the environment, even to the extent of the geology of the planet, is so great now that we shouldn't think of ourselves as living in just in the Holocene any longer. We should be thinking of ourselves living in the, as I say, the Anthropocene. That we are a major force, human beings as a species are a major force on the shape of the planet, and that needs to be acknowledged in the naming of this particular period. Anyway, that's not exactly what I'm thinking of, but I think that was the prompt for this, which is to do with, whether this, not just, I guess it is human, but not just human, but whether sentience itself, whether that be human or whether it be allowed to encompass other animals, whether sentience itself is such a significant game that we do think of it as not just a new era, but a kind of break with the past, or different enough to constitute a line drawn in the sand after which everything is different, And I suppose I'm just thinking to help me think through that, I'm visioning this cartoon version of universal history, assuming the Big Bang is correct, which I guess it must be. Because the first few seconds of the Big Bang, probably longer than that, I don't know enough about this, I suppose, but a certain period during and after the inflation of the universe, there was no matter, was there? There was no matter in the universe. It was just what we would call energy, I guess. Actually, preceding that, I guess it was in the very few femtoseconds of the Big Bang, I suppose, when all the equations of physics collapsed. I guess they would only be something like mathematics, but beyond that point, the only real way that we would have now from this point of expressing the condition of the universe in those first few moments after the Big Bang, or longer, would be in terms of the physics of energy. I don't know how long that lasted. The inflation of the universe continued, particles started to come together and eventually formed stars and so on, and out of the stars became generated the conditions in which elements could form. So out of that universe of energy, it started to become possible to talk about the universe. Not that there's anybody there to talk about it, but from our perspective, it becomes possible at that point to talk about the universe in terms of a physics of matter, which isn't to say that energy's gone away, energy's stopped, or that matter and energy aren't complementary properties of the universe, but thus that it wouldn't make sense to talk about matter prior to that point. So the physics of matter comes into being, doesn't it? And then at a certain point, 4.5 billion years ago or whatever, matter comes together, and the kind of chemistry that we use to describe matter as well as the physics, the matter comes together in a way which produces cells, and cells produce multicellular organisms, and that little chain of behaviour and activity continues. So it starts to become possible and economical to talk about the universe or aspects of the universe in terms of something like biology or life. Because again, it doesn't make sense to talk about life in the universe prior to there being biology in the universe, prior to there being DNA and reproducing cells and so on. And these are kind of step changes, aren't they, in the development of the universe? Huge step changes. So for me, I'm just asking myself, is the dawning of sentience, or a particular kind of sentience, maybe even only linguistic sentience, I don't know, some kind of sentience, is that dawning of sentience a significant enough step change to say, all right, the game has changed now, we have to draw a line under what came before, or at least recognise that that's doing this thing and this is doing something else. There's a different kinds of set of equations going on here. There's a different set of mathematics applied to it. There's a whole different set of paradigms and models associated with it. Once you get sentience, with all the things that implies in terms of values and in terms of sufferings and in terms of what becomes society and what becomes language and what becomes culture. The period after, I don't know whether that be the first dawning of I don't know, whatever consciousness or awareness is, or whether that be beginnings of language, or whether that be the beginnings of kind of rational enlightenment, or whatever it may be. However you see that, and I would guess it would probably be a very, very fuzzy boundary between those things. It seems to me that for me at least, that's a big question. Again, I'm prompted not just by that radio show, I'm prompted by that Adam Curtis documentary, Machines of Loving Grace, that one. Because if you don't know what I'm talking about, documentary series on television, 3-part documentary made by Adam Curtis, who's really beautiful. They're not exactly documentaries, they're kind of documentaries. And the last one was about applying machinic and organic and evolutionary paradigms to human sociality and human behaviour, and the complexity of a culture in which people on one side of the planet are buying PS2s which contain chips, which in turn contain elements which are being mined in parts of Africa in which there are horrible conflicts going on. It's about the kind of networked world as well as the other things I've mentioned. But anyway, in part of that, there's a question about to what extent we are meat machines driven by selfish genes, and is there any, not exactly hope, but is there any legitimacy in a conversation about what he referred to as transcending that? And he was talking about, I think it was George Price, who was involved in that kind of genetic research, coming up with those ideas to do that with what became selfish genes theory, and how he, at a certain point, seemed to become completely kind of horrified by that, by the prospect that we are as essentially meat machines driven by really atavistic urges, which cause us to behave in all kinds of ways which are very kind of productive. And his only way of transcending that was, as I say, that was the word they used, was by a kind of retreat or a move into Christianity and religious faith, almost as an attempt to say we are not just meat machines, we are something else. And for him that was a question of religious spirit. But I guess it could be, to be in a more secular way, I would ask that question of whether that idea of a place to go after the meat, what's the dessert course on that particular menu? What is there another place to go? Whether that be rationalism, whether it be computation, whether it be an appeal to logic and language, which again, transcend is difficult, but does something different to the biology, does something different to the genes, does something different to the script written by millions of years of selfish history. I don't know. But if it is, for me that would be about identifying an epoch which supersedes or succeeds the era of biology. So we've come through the first femtoseconds of the mathematical universe in which the Big Bang emerged, came into existence, and then the period of time, whether it was seconds or hours or days or maybe months, I don't know, of a universe of essentially the physics of energy, and then the billions of years of the physics of matter, incorporating the physics of chemistry, and then a universe perhaps 4 billion years old of biology and DNA. Whether we are now for the last 400 years or 40,000 years or longer in an epoch of sentience and psychology and psyche and mind and rationalism of something, and is there a way of can we truly leave the biology behind? Because that's a really important question, I think. If there's no hope of ever leaving the biology behind, of condensing out the biology into thought in the way that energy condenses out into matter, and the matter does things that energy can't, or that biology condenses out of matter and the biology does things that raw matter can't. Is there any sense in thinking that sentience condensing out of biology can do things that biology can't? I don't know. I doubt it. But you never know. Who knows? I don't know. I mean, that would be yeah, I'll leave it there.